Now moving over to wide receivers, as we've been doing, we'll start with that 100 to 150 range of guys, and then move into some guys. I think there's a ton of guys going after 150. We won't analyze every single one, but I'll certainly toss out a bunch of names there. But let's start with you, Pat. Who are a couple guys in that 100 to 150 range that you really like?
Oh man, so I know DeVante Parker is not like the greatest separator, and it's like getting a little late to be high on that guy. He's only had one really big year, but man, like of any wide receiver for New England that I'm drawn to, it's kind of him. Like
Yeah.
Jacoby is useful, but Myers doesn't really. He doesn't score touchdowns. He doesn't really make a lot of big plays. It's kind of empty calories with him. A lot of catches but not much big play potential. Maybe Parker is the one guy for them who can do some damage downfield. So I kind of like him just because he's so late. Like everyone's completely bored with DeVante Parker, and he goes like in the 13th, 14th round of draft.
Right.
And another guy who's kind of interesting. So Sky Moore. The usage in the preseason has not been real encouraging. I mean, he's been playing behind like Justin Watson, who kind of went off in preseason week 2. We wondered all offseason how things were going to sort themselves out with Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdez-Scantling coming over, and Sky Moore going in the draft. So 3 new receivers. How are they going to fit in? And Moore's been kind of getting the rookie treatment, but I mean, the overall talent package is really enticing. The fact that he might get a chance to play with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he could pop right away. He just might be a guy you have to, kind of sit on and wait for the egg to hatch a few weeks into the regular season. But I think eventually he's going to start producing.
Absolutely. And they're seeing that versatile role in the backfield and everything. It might take a little while, as you said, but look at Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like every year, A.J. Brown a couple years ago, there's always that like rookie receiver that does finally come into some meaningful work and takes off. And it's not the hardest depth chart to climb up. So I'm very intrigued by Sky Moore, regardless of the discouraging preseason usage. I think he's going to have a real role, whether it's midseason or right away. He's definitely one of the more talented guys there. He just feasted on the college competition. Yeah, maybe a little lesser than college competition you'd expect, but he did what he was supposed to do. What can we can't hate on him for feast. He was where he was, and he ate like he should have. So I love it. And Parker, yeah, as a New England fan, I mean, they're all the camp reports. The guy's been a monster in the red zone all off season. So could be a nice source of touchdowns in round 13, 14. Certainly in best ball, it might be tricky because that would be a tough receiving core, as it is with the running backs. The Patriots are always tough to know who's going to go off, but those spike weeks will certainly come for Parker. I bet he'll have multiple games with multiple touchdowns. So I like him quite a bit. I really like Robert Woods as well going in this range. He's right at that 100 cusp, but think about the opportunity. First in vacated targets and target share and air yards and air yard share and inside the 10 targets. Every meaningful vacated opportunity metric, they are at the top of it for the Titans. Traylon Burks was definitely intriguing as a prospect, but right now he's running deep into games with the third and fourth stringers, and he's not really impressing in that run either. He's been banged up again, time to time, whether it's the conditioning. Now he's dealing with some sort of ailment. It just seems to me like somebody's going to have to step up here. And Woods has always been a pretty reliable, just dependable, unsexy guy that gets it done. So with all that opportunity there for him, I wouldn't be shocked to see 80 to 90 catches going after around 100. I pick 100. Could be very intriguing. Apparently they have really good chemistry, him and Tannehill as well, dating all the way back to OTAs. So I like Woods quite a bit as a nice source of volume. But if you want a little more sizzle in that range, Chris Olave really, really intrigues me. I know it's a pretty congested with Thomas is there. There's a lot of mouths to feed Jarvis Landry, but I think he does something different than those two in terms of the field stretching ability and his just ability to separate. It's insane. We already just saw it in week 2 of the preseason with that touchdown. Nobody was even close to him. So smooth. So I think he'll have a role regardless. And then if Thomas, you're already dealing with a hamstring, we haven't even seen him in 2 years. So as much as I'm intrigued by Thomas and his return, if something happens to him yet again, we could be seeing a number 1 receiver for Jameis Winston, and we know how he can force feed his targets. So I like Olave a lot as well in that range. Any thoughts on those two guys, or you want to toss out any other names?
Yeah, I think with Woods, you're right about maybe target opportunity and price coming at a nice intersection here where, he's not, I think the excitement over Robert Woods has kind of waned a little bit. I mean, he goes from being drafted frequently ahead of Cooper Kupp last year to being kind of a forgotten commodity this year. So, yeah, I like the price there. And, man, Olave, I wanted my Packers to get him so bad, Wolf. Just, like, he's the most... Rodgers-friendly wide receiver in this year's rookie class. Just the most,
Terrifying.
yeah, such an amazing route runner. So smooth. Like I do think he has a chance, and we should probably mention George Pickens too, just
Yeah,
because of the
right.
way he's balled out. Right. I mean, he's getting more expensive. I don't know if he's even going to be going after the top 100 anymore. Maybe his ADP is there now, but realistically, I think someone in every draft is probably going to want to take a chance on that guy. But man, he is showing out. Like I don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be like in Pittsburgh. There's a lot of target competition, but I mean, he does look like a potential superstar here, and like I can understand the temptation if someone's thinking about him in like the 8th round.
Absolutely. He looks like he could potentially lead all rookie receivers in points. And you pick it seems like he's going to be taken over sooner than later. And there's just always that like kind of rookie to rookie connection. I don't have the stats to quantify that, but they always seem to just have that nice locked in. He seems to be outplaying Claypool at this point for the number 2 role. He's listed as a starter. He's playing all the starter snaps. I don't think any receiver has risen more in value than George Pickens. So absolutely there with you. Rondale Moore, the last guy in that range too. I'm intrigued by at least. 4.37 40, 95th percentile there, a ton of burst. Like, just didn't really get much of a role, but Kingsbury just continues to hype the guy up as their immediate fill-in for Christian Kirk. They're talking about running the air raid even more with like the 4 wide once Hopkins is back. So you got those 6 weeks where he could really give you a spark right away. Certainly if you're waiting for Hopkins, you're waiting for a Godwin or something like that. He's a guy I love in that like round 11 to 12 range. That could be a nice high usage guy for those first few weeks. And then who knows if it will even disappear even when Hopkins is back. Certainly will be less. But I really like Rondale Moore's potential in this offense, especially as a bridge to some of those hurt, clear-cut number 1 receivers like Godwin and Hopkins. Are you out on Moore, or do you have any thoughts on him?
Oh, on Rondale, no,
Yeah.
I'm as a Big Ten guy, I'm very much in on Rondale. Like that freshman season that he had in 2018, like that was unlike anything I've ever seen. I mean, he was just going nuclear, like pretty much beat Ohio
Crazy.
State by himself that
Yeah.
year. Yeah, and so like I mean, there's not a great history, a great track record for wide receivers under 5'9". Like we've only
Yeah.
seen one guy under 5'9" have a 1,000-yard season in the Super Bowl era. It was like Richard Johnson for the Lions in 1989.
That's
But
crazy.
man, I mean, I love the dude's game. I would love to see them just make him the full-time slot guy now that Christian Kirk's no longer there. But I wonder what that's going to look like after Hopkins gets back.
Yeah.
Like and if you've got any hesitation to start Rondale Moore in the early weeks of the season, then what's going to happen like after the suspension ends. So man, I want to like Rondale so much. I'm a truther, but like sometimes I haven't been able to pull the trigger on him in drafts this year.
Yeah. And admittedly, too, some of those running backs we talked about, Pierce, White, Gainwell, Robinson, all kind of go in that same area. It's certainly Pickens. I actually haven't landed as much Rondale as I would necessarily think, because I love everything about the situation. But where he goes, I almost always seem to be going someone else, and especially because some of these later round receivers are just so intriguing. You already mentioned Dotson as like your must-hit guy, and he's going after 150. Fully on board there. Is there any other guys, though, going after 150 you could see really breaking out?
Yeah, I mean, so as a handcuff wide receiver, I like Josh Palmer on the Chargers. A guy who maybe as a number 3 is not going to have that much standalone value. Maybe could pop, like if you have him in best ball or something. But like if anything happens to either Keenan Allen or Mike Williams, and this guy is getting like an 80 or 90% snap share every week in a high-powered passing attack in that AFC West where we're going to see shootout after shootout, Palmer could be really interesting. He's separated himself from Jalen Guyton for that number 3 role. Like he's pretty clearly the number 3. Really unique talent there. And another Big Ten wide receiver, Wolf. I'm just going to keep throwing him out there. David Bell as I think he's probably the second best receiver the Browns have after Amari Cooper. And this dude just gets open. He kind of reminds me of Anquan Bolden.
Yeah.
Not real fast. His 40 time was a big disappointment at the combine. But man, I mean, last year, I think the Iowa Hawkeyes were undefeated and riding high, and David Bell just wrecked them in Iowa City. Just wrecked them. Over 200 yards, a couple of touchdowns. Yeah, so, man, I think he could be kind of sneaky good and a guy you can get really, really late and a draft kind of pick.
Yeah, I love that call. I love these guys that just can shoulder entire offenses in college and to see where they can translate. And Jalen Tolbert was one of those guys as well. 33.4% college target share. Player profile calls it the college dominator rating. 51.2% was in the 90th percentile. So he's another guy, comes from a small school, but certainly just absolutely feasted. And this Cowboys attack, with Dak and Kellen Moore has just been nothing other than prolific. First in total yards in their 2 seasons together, sixth and first in total points, second in passing yards, fifth and third in passing TDs across those 2 seasons. So it is a high-powered attack. Maybe it goes down a little bit, but there's a ton of mouths to feed. Vacated opportunities, what I'm getting at more. With Cooper gone, somebody's got to step up there. Gallup won't be ready until about mid-October, they're saying. And right now, it does seem like Tolbert's the guy. I know there's some other rookies, or Noah Brown and other people that might end up taking it, but he's a guy after 150. Why not take a stab at somebody that could have a high target share in this offense, certainly to start the year, and then maybe to continue on in 4.49. I like a lot about him. And then that handcuff argument also could apply maybe to KJ Osborne, a guy that really, really played well whenever called upon. He saw 6+ targets in 8 games last year. He topped 14 in 7 of those 8 games. He was a top 24 receiver in 6 of those 8 games, and he averaged nearly 16 points per game anytime he saw 6+ targets. So he might not even need an injury to get to 6+ targets a game this year. We've already talked about Kirk Cousins and Kevin O'Connell bringing this more aerial bound attack. But when he plays, he does really well. And he's getting kind of the starter's treatment in terms of not playing while Jefferson and Thielen are also on ice. Seems like he's got that role unlocked, just as Palmer did, who also, again, produced really well whenever called upon. So I love those 2 guys as potential quote-unquote handcuffs that have some upside, even if nothing happens in front of them. I like both those guys a lot.
Yeah, me too. Tolbert, like you said, there's just opportunity galore in what should be a pretty good offense. And who was the other guy, Nico?
We're going to hit Nico.
I'm sorry.
KJ Osborne as the wide receiver handcuff type of role. Yeah.
Yeah. So especially with all the 3 wideouts, they're going to be playing, and that's just not something we saw a lot of from Minnesota last year. I think they were one of the lower percentage teams in the league as far as playing 3 wideouts. But we know with O'Connell coming from that Rams system, they're going to be running 11 personnel all the time. So big opportunity there.
And you mentioned Nico, another one of my favorites. I like Mills, and I like Nico, that number 2. He's been making plays regularly. Prayers up for John Mechie. Obviously, a very unfortunate situation. Fantasy-wise, it does ultimately condense that target pool to, Brandon Cooks could see 30% of the targets, and Nico might still see a 20% target share. All the buzz has been huge on this guy. Good grasp of the offense, refined his route running, dominating in camp, a great red zone body. We just saw him score a nice red zone TD. I think he definitely has 8 to 10 touchdown upside. I think, if they're going to have to, if they suck and chuck, I think there's room for, 1,000 potential yards even. So I love Nico Collins in that 150-ish range. I think he could be a real stud player.
Yeah, same here. Lot of opportunity, and one of those guys who never totally caught fire at the University of Michigan, but maybe that was the Harbaugh handicap. A lot of guys seem to underachieve there, and then maybe can go on to bigger and better things in the pros. But yeah, I like Nico a lot, and he will have opportunity galore, especially with that Mechie injury.
Yeah, the last names, I'm not going to dive into these guys, but Wan'Dale Robinson, KJ Hamler, Alec Pierce, a few guys also on my list with some real upside. And then somebody's going to come into value with the Packers. I know Lazard is kind of the clear number 1. I don't know if it's Dubs who just continues to make play after play, if it's just the old steady Randall Cobb. You're a Packers fan, so I'd love just your quick take on who you could see behind Lazard, or even if it is Lazard, coming into some value with Rodgers there.
Yeah, it could be one of these situations, Wolf, where no one has more than about 700 yards. Because I'm not even sure I totally buy into Lazard as being this high volume target guy. So if you're betting on ceiling, Dobbs and Watson are both interesting, and I know the shortened training camp for Watson is kind of depressing, but he does have that crazy size speed combination. But I feel like we're destined to see Sammy Watkins go for 5 for 86 and a touchdown in week one. And all of a sudden people are throwing out double-digit fab bids on Sammy Watkins. Something weird is going to happen. There wouldn't be surprised if Watkins had his moments, but I think it's going to be really unpredictable from week to week. As much as I'm a Packer fan, I've kind of been avoiding the wide receivers in drafts.
Yeah, Sigmund Bloom. I'll just add one tweet he had that I really love. One of the better analysts out there, in my opinion. Randall Cobb with 5 or more targets last year in those games: 569 and 2, 315 and 2, 3 for 50, and then 495 and 1. So whenever he was used, he had some decent games, and there's certainly targets galore up here. I love that he also had 21 of his 28 catches went for first downs. And then, as you can see, 5 of them went for touchdowns too. So those money situations, Rodgers was looking for his guy. A guy that's going free right now that will have at least 3 to 4 games in your best ball formats that he'll be in your lineup. So I go to him more so than Dubs just because Rodgers loves his veterans. But man, obviously I'd go Dubs in a vacuum because the upside's really there. But in terms of price, I like Cobb as just this last round kind of throwaway guy. And we're talking around 20 type of leagues there too. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.